What is up, everybody? D-Man back, and happy Halloween! It is the best freaking holiday of the year. It's the best one. I hope you guys are having an awesome Halloween. What are you doing for Halloween? You staying inside? You giving out candy? You going trick-or-treating? What are you doing? Let me know. I think I'm gonna go to a haunted house tonight, which should be pretty awesome. But I want to hear from you guys. Comment below and let me know. In the meantime, I want to celebrate the spookiest day of the year by talking about something a little spooky. I guess not as spooky as it is disturbing, which is the topic of today's video. In this video, we are going to be counting down the top 5 most disturbing moments in a Godzilla film. This is going to be a condensed version of a live stream I did a couple weeks ago. If you want to go check out that live stream, it's still linked on the channel. It's still worth watching. It'll be very different than this. That was like an ongoing extended discussion with you guys. That was a lot of fun, so you can still go check that out, but this is going to be a shorter, abbreviated version of that. And without further ado, let's get to it. Getting into it, I want to talk about, first of all, what makes something disturbing, because it isn't just being spooky. It's not fear, it's not death, and it's not violence. For me, what makes something disturbing, truly disturbing, is tension, atmosphere, tone, implication, and real-world connections and associations. That's what I want this list to be about, things that invoke those feelings. Full transparency, and also because I love the guy's channel, I want to shout out Dave McRae for inspiring this with his recent live stream discussing what the most disturbing moment in a Halloween film was. When watching that video, it inspired me to start thinking about what's the most disturbing moment in a Godzilla film, and I think I came up with a pretty good list here. Some honorable mentions right off the bat. To begin, we have The Quiet Before the Storm from Godzilla Raids Again. An evacuation notice is sounded, putting an end to a dance party in Osaka. Within an instant, the city goes into blackout. All music cuts as we hear the rumble of fighter jets over the skies. A series of slow and foreboding shots reveal the silent city as the military takes position. What makes it so creepy is the slow pacing. It's really drawn out, the implied danger of what's to come, as we all know Godzilla's about to attack and we all know what that's going to do to the city, and most importantly, the connection to the real-world wartime blackouts that Japan had to experience during World War II, right before an air raid attack. The imagery of this scene is unmistakably calling back to wartime imagery of what it was like when Osaka would go into blackout, everything would get really quiet, and people would evacuate off the streets, and then fighter jets would take to the skies, and sometimes they would start to bomb civilians. That is what's so scary about that scene, is that it calls back some real-world horrors from the war. It's just creepy. It helps that Godzilla looks like he's right out of an analog horror as well. Next up, we've got one that I think a lot of people would put higher up on their lists, and this is another honorable mention. It's the parking lot attack from Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack, aka GMK. After a long and supernatural build-up to the discovery of multiple mythical monsters, the resurrected Godzilla makes his return, proving everyone's fears right. Godzilla acts deliberately and with malice as he goes out of his way to knock over cranes, stomp bridges, and trample his way through neighborhoods. Following the iconic hospital attack, where Godzilla finishes the job he previously started by killing a young woman who had disrespected the memory of those lost in the wartime era, we find ourselves in a grocery store with a bunch of guests being urged to evacuate. One woman is annoyed about Godzilla's return, as if he's nothing more than an inconvenience rather than a true threat. She winds up running out into the parking lot where she sees Godzilla passing the store. Godzilla, in a very rare moment, turns to face her, looking towards the fleeing people until he spots the crowd she's in. Godzilla, face to face with his victim, then in a moment of deliberate action, snarls, showcasing his terrifying design. Love it, love those eyes, very creepy. He charges his beam, and a shockwave hits a school, where children look out the window to see a mushroom cloud rising into the air. This scene could have been higher up on the list, because while it's lacking the mood and atmosphere of all of the rest of the entries on this list, this scene features a true sense of malice from Godzilla that isn't really ever seen in any other scenes ever again. It's just not seen very often. The only thing that I think comes close is Godzilla's attack on Odo at the start of Godzilla -1, maybe, but even then he's more provoked. The thing that makes this scene so disturbing is the real-world connection to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It takes this scene to the next level and makes it so iconic and makes it stand out in such a bold way. The fact that it's set during the daytime helps elevate that, as that's what it would have really looked like if you were just one city away from the bombs as they were dropped back in 1945. It's very disturbing imagery. The reason it's not higher up on this list or even cracking the top 5 is because it's got too much dark humor in it, and I think it's too self-aware. It works perfectly for what the movie's going for, it just didn't crack the disturbing list for me. But what did? Well, my number 5 is the fish tank of horrors from Godzilla vs. Destroya. After becoming suspicious that the soil in Tokyo Bay may contain traces of a powerful new form of radiation left behind by the oxygen destroyer 40 years earlier, scientists discovered that a life form escaped their sample soil and is on the loose. A security guard walks around an aquarium doing his nightly pass. Again, it's a series of slow and deliberate shots that really draw out his discovery. Building the suspense, he hears a strange hiss and goes to investigate as a series of flashing lights draws his attention. He then stumbles upon a fish being electrified, decaying into bones rapidly before his very eyes. Soon, all the fish in the tank begin to disintegrate, mirroring the use of the oxygen destroyer sample in the original Godzilla, making it very clear that a new rival to Godzilla has been born, one potentially far deadlier than he is. The ominous build-up, the creepy reveal, the fish decaying, the actual visual of it, all of this combined to create what was for me as a kid the most horrifying sequence in any Godzilla movie ever. I didn't even want to watch it, it scared me that bad. I would look away or I would skip that scene of the movie, it just freaked me out. It's always stuck with me, and I find it to be very disturbing. The idea that something so noble all those years ago could have such horrific consequences all these years later, and the way that that takes shape, and knowing that Destroya is coming and knowing that it could be worse than Godzilla, and it's just, I just really like it. I really like it, and it makes Serizawa's sacrifice so depressing, as he knew something bad was going to happen from the oxygen destroyer, and now he's proven right. It's really eerie stuff. Next up, this is another one that I think could be very high on some people's lists, and that's my number 4, Final Evolution from Shin Godzilla. After a brutal fight against Godzilla, it seems Rando Yaguchi and his team have finally secured a partial victory against Godzilla, who stands frozen in place in the heart of Tokyo. With the threat of nuclear violence against Tokyo if Godzilla were to reawaken on their shoulders, Yaguchi accepts the responsibility of trying to find a new way forward to coexist with Godzilla. Just as it seems we've reached a happy ending, Yaguchi says things are still far from settled, as we cut to Godzilla to reveal his tail has entered its next evolution. Godzilla, taken down by committee, creates a committee of his own, one that combines himself with the creatures that defeated him. Not only is Shin Godzilla just overall an eerie looking Godzilla, giving it credit right off the bat, but it's the implication that Goro Maki's DNA is actually inside of Godzilla, fueling him, giving him rage, intention, and a target, along with the nuclear threat that looms, that I find so creepy and disturbing. The slow reveal with absolute silence, showcasing the nightmarish and perfectly designed humanoid Godzilla hybrid creatures, is another thing that takes this to the next level. Finally, the thing that I think pushes this over the top and makes as lasting of an impression as it does is the implication that no matter what humanity comes up with, Godzilla will always counter them to stay ahead. It's that idea that I find truly disturbing and what truly nails this shocking finale. The idea that no matter what, all of them are doomed and Godzilla will always win. That is so creepy. Those designs are just so perfect as well. I love it. My number 3 is Groomed for Extinction from Godzilla the Planet Eater, and really the Godzilla anime trilogy overall. One that I think many people would skip out on simply because they don't like those films, but I think this stuff is the stuff of nightmares. The Planet Eater has no shortage of disturbing moments, from the sacrifice of the unknowing religious people to awaken Ghidorah, to the appearance of the creature, distorting space and time, revealing the crew of the spaceship to be dead on the vitals before they're actually killed. The movie knows how to unsettle its viewers. But the thing that I think makes the whole trilogy as strong as it is for me, and what makes it have such a strong lasting impression, again, for me, is the drawn out reveal that Mephies has spent his entire life preparing to summon Ghidorah, and he picked Haruo as his target to make that possible. It's just another level of upsetting. The reveal that Mephies has nurtured Haruo's hatred for Godzilla so much, encouraging his obsession, killing his friends and family in order to make him vulnerable, all in order to set him down a path of destruction that has gotten everyone he knows and loves killed, it's incredibly frightening to think about. The idea that someone you've trusted your entire life has been knowingly manipulating you to eventually lead you to a vulnerable point where they can take advantage of you and get you to do something horrific, it is really upsetting to think about. Haruo being groomed since he was a child by basically a serial killer as a way to act as basically a tool in which that killer is going to enact their plans is really messed up. And in the movie, Haruo's memories are being infiltrated in the moment as he's being taunted and forced to confront the people that he's gotten killed. He's then made to feel responsible for everything bad that's ever happened within his lifetime, all in an attempt to further groom him in order to have him kill himself so that Ghidorah can take over. It's really, really weird and twisted. In the end, Haruo's only option is to kill Mephes, basically his father, for his entire life. And then, in order to rid himself of Mephes' influence, the only thing he's left to do is to kill himself. Ever since Haruo was a child, he was groomed to lead his species to extinction or to lead himself to death. It's one or the other. It's just the eerie idea that ever since he met Mephes, his fate was sealed, and that this was gonna be his ending no matter what. And no matter what, he could never have a happy ending because his mind was literally destroyed by this guy. That's the stuff I find really disturbing. At number 2, we have The Black Rain from Godzilla -1. After one of the most spectacular atomic breath reveals that we've ever seen, Shikishima stumbles out into the desolate streets of Ginza after an enormous shockwave hits the city. His breathing is so intense as the wind, the sound of his feet in the rubble, the shifting of paper pick up. As he begins to cry, thunder crackles behind him. Noriko is gone. Shikishima's love is gone, and he finds himself alone. He turns to face Godzilla, who stands amongst the flames, looking upon a growing mushroom cloud. Godzilla bellows a massive roar and resumes his march. Shikishima screams in rage as black rain pours from the skies, coating everything around him. Operatic music swells and the aftermath is revealed. Some of the things that make this scene so disturbing are the pacing, the sound design, the atmosphere, and the seeming death of Noriko. But there are two things that really sell this sequence, and they are Godzilla and the real-world connection to Hiroshima. Godzilla standing watching the mushroom cloud has become my #1 favorite Godzilla visual of all time. And the fact that Godzilla is a character you have to interpret in order to understand his emotions makes this even better because it becomes completely subjective. Godzilla looking on the cloud could be many things. Maybe he's proud of himself, having taken revenge on humanity by unleashing the same weapon upon them that they unleashed upon him. Maybe he's in awe of the devastation. Maybe he's remembering his own creation. Maybe he's looking upon it in fear that he too is capable of this horrific power. Or maybe, and potentially worst of all, he's not thinking anything at all. Maybe he feels nothing about what's happened and he's just acting on basic instincts. None of this means anything to him and it's just what he does. And then the Black Rain being brought up for the first time in Godzilla franchise history, it's just what sells this movie to me. It's what solidifies this scene as a true tragedy and what pushes it into a disturbing status, as this is the first and truest connection to some of the real life victims of Hiroshima and Nagasaki that we have seen since the original Godzilla back in 1954. The fact that this implies that Shikishima will live the rest of his life with radiation sickness and perhaps even die from what he's witnessed here makes it even worse, coupled with the fact that if you remember, Shikishima is blaming himself for his inaction against Godzilla at the start of the film. It's all just so incredible. And that brings us to #1, as I'm sure you all know, it is the Children of the Atomic Bomb from Godzilla 1954. The triple whammy that elevated the Godzilla franchise beyond just another monster film and into being true art comes partway through Godzilla's rampage through Tokyo in the original movie. After crippling Japan's defenses and raging through the city, a mother is seen holding her 3 girls while watching a building burn as Godzilla approaches. Godzilla closes in somewhere unseen in the distance. We don't know how far off he is or how soon they'll meet their fates. Through sparks, she comforts her girls by telling them that they will soon be joining their father. The connection to the children of Hiroshima and Nagasaki is unmistakable, as those children might soon be joining their fathers who died during the war before them. While the children in the movie aren't literally the right age to be children of the atomic bomb, or to be the children of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the connection is unmistakable. For many, many years, many people believed that they were in fact children of a father who had died during one of the atomic bombings, and while that isn't literally the case, I don't think that's symbolically off the table. Later, during what I consider the most impactful sequence in Godzilla film history, we revisit the children of the atomic bomb in the hospital to find one sitting by her mother. Just after Dr. Tanabe confirms another child has received a lethal dose of radiation poisoning, we find a dead mother on a stretcher. She's carried off in front of her daughter, who begins to weep. Finally, it's hammered home as we see children in the hospital and on a TV broadcast being treated for radiation burns or aiding their injured parents. All the while, a choir of schoolgirls sings a prayer for peace. We cut inside to see the girls lined up like tombstones in a cemetery, singing the haunting melody, hoping for peace and light to return once more in the wake of Godzilla's attack. These three moments combine to give the original Godzilla its unmatched tone, mood, atmosphere, horror, sorrow, and ties to the real-life horrors of the war and the atomic bomb. It is unmistakable the connection this has to real victims of the real-world actions of real people. And it is that pushes Godzilla to the next level, and that makes the franchise as powerful and lasting as it is, and it's that gives it so much to say and continues to give it so much to say about the human condition and what we have all been through. And that concludes what I consider to be the top 5 most disturbing moments in Godzilla film history. I would love to hear your thoughts. Comment them down below, let me know, give your top 5 lists, give a top 10 list, let me know, I'd love to hear it, and that'll do it for this one, guys. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. If you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below, where you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. Thank you all for watching, I hope you enjoyed, I will see you all next time for the next one. D-Man, out.